Before you start your questions from question number 20, T.S. Grewal, I want to give you a formula, ठीक है, for how to calculate the closing capital. देखो, अगर आपको closing asset is given in the question and closing liability is given in the question, मतलब क्या होगा, वहां पे ऐसे लिखा नहीं होगा, it will be the assets as on 31st March 2023. So closing liability, the liability as on 31st March is this much amount likha hoga. So you can find out the closing capital from here. You can closing asset minus closing liability will give you the closing capital. Okay, one method is this. Another method is you can find out closing capital from opening capital. How to find closing capital from opening capital. Opening capital diya hai and a few other items are given, then how to find the closing capital. So this is the formula. Okay, what is the formula? The formula is closing capital is equal to opening capital plus additional capital minus drawings plus profit plus income minus losses and minus expenses. इनमें से अगर कुछ भी दिया है, so you are going to do it like this. Okay, so from the opening capital and these items, whatever is given, you can find out the closing capital. ठीक है. Now if you have to find out the opening capital, how to find opening capital from closing capital? अगर क्वेश्चन में closing capital दिया है, तब आप opening capital कैसे find out करोगे? You are just going to do the reverse. Opening capital will be equal to closing capital. अब यहाँ पे जो जो add करा था, you are going to subtract. So minus the additional capital plus drawings minus profit minus income plus losses plus expenses. Understood? So this is how you find the opening capital from the closing capital. So if you know these formulas, you can easily do the questions starting from question number 20 to 26, where you have to find the total assets, sometimes closing capital, sometimes opening capital. So you should know these questions. Closing capital, how to find if the closing assets are given and closing liabilities are given. How to find the closing capital from opening capital. How to find opening capital from closing capital. So you can just note down these formulas. Okay. Question number 21. Gurbant had a capital of 75,000 on 1st April. So this is the opening capital. Okay. He had also goods amounting to rupees 15,000 which he had purchased on credit and the payment has not been made. Okay. He has purchased goods. Okay. And on credit. On credit. So that means he has not made the payment of rupees 15,000. So 15,000 के उसके creditors हैं. He has to pay those creditors. Okay, find out the value of the total assets of the business. Now assets is equal to liability plus capital. हम हमेशा ये बोलते हैं ना equation. So you have to find out this asset. Asset की value निकालनी है. Now what is the liability here? These creditors, they are your outside liabilities. So creditors कितने हैं? 15,000. तो वो liability के अंडर आएंगे. And capital, which is the opening capital, is 75,000. So how much it is? It is 90,000. So the total assets are, what is the value of the total assets? Total assets is equal to 90,000. Through the equation, you got this answer. Now 21 ka B part. After a period of 1 month, he came to know that he had suffered a loss of 1700. He withdrew 800 for his personal use. तो ये तो एक तो loss हो गया. This will affect the capital account. Personal use, again this is a drawing. So it will affect the capital account. Find out his capital and assets of the business. Find out his capital and assets of the business. So capital means this capital is your closing capital. आपको निकालनी है. इसमें एडजस्टमेंट्स करेंगे. तो व्हाट इज द ओपनिंग कैपिटल? ओपनिंग कैपिटल इज 75,000. अब इसमें लॉस का क्या करेंगे? यू आर गोइंग टू सब्ट्रैक्ट द लॉस 1700 and you are going to subtract the drawings. So what is the closing capital now? Closing capital is 72,500 is the closing capital, because loss and drawings are always reducing the capital balance. आपको हमेशा वो माइनस करने हैं. And you also have, now you have to find out the assets of the business. Assets के लिए what is the equation? Assets is equal to liability plus capital. तो liability कितने हैं? Creditors आपके 15,000 है. क्वेश्चन पहले वाले क्वेश्चन वही कंटिन्यू है. एंड कैपिटल अब कितनी हो गई आपकी? कैपिटल इज नाउ 72,500 आफ्टर ऑल द एडजस्टमेंट्स. सो नाउ व्हाट आर द assets? Assets are now 87500. So new assets are 87500. Understood? Now the 22nd question, A part. Mohan started a business on 1st April with a capital of 10,000. तो capital कितनी है? 10,000 opening capital, and borrowed rupees 3,000 from a friend. तो this borrowing is what? He has to pay back to the friend. तो ये जो friend है वो उसका क्या है? मोहन का creditor है. It's a liability. It's a liability. He earned a profit of rupees 5,000 during the year end and withdrew cash for personal use 4,000. What is his capital on 31st March? तो आपको closing capital calculate करनी है. So closing capital will be your opening capital. अब इसमें इसका कोई काम नहीं है creditor का, है ना? Nothing. But profit affects the capital. So you have to add the profit. And drawings का क्या करना है? This 4,000 drawings, this will be subtracted. Understood? So this 3,000 credit जो friend से borrow किया, that will not be taken into account. उसका कोई काम नहीं है capital के calculation में. So opening capital is 10,000 plus profit is 5,000 and then your drawings is 4,000. So how much it is? 11,000 is your capital on 31st March 23. Okay. Now the B part. B part is Mahesh started a business with a capital of 15,000 on 1st April. तो ये opening capital है. During the year, he made a profit of 3,000. This will affect the capital account. He owes rupees 2,500 to suppliers of good. This is a liability. Creditors हैं suppliers जो हैं उसके. So this will not affect. What is the total assets in his business as on 31st March? तो सबसे पहले हम इसमें क्या करेंगे? We will calculate the closing capital. Capital को का सही amount निकालते हैं. Capital is your 15,000 जो opening दिया है plus the profit. कितना हो गया? 18,000. Now what is he saying? Find out what is the total assets. तो हमारी equation क्या है? Asset is equal to liability plus capital. And how much is the liability? Liability is 2,500. The amount that he owes to the supplier of goods, that is the liability. And capital हमने calculate कर लिया, it's 18,000. So what is the total? It is how much? 20,500 is the assets of Mahesh that on 31st March 23. Now the 23rd question. On 31st March, the total assets and external liabilities were 2 lakh and 6,000 respectively. ठीक है, on 31st March. So that means this is your closing asset and these are your external liabilities. का मतलब होता है liabilities. ठीक है, so this is your closing liability. During the year, the proprietor had introduced capital of 20,000. This is your additional capital and withdrawn 12,000 for his personal use. So this is your drawings against capital. He made a profit of 20,000 during the year. Calculate the capital as on 1st April 2022. तो आपको opening capital find out करनी है. But here in the first sentence, closing asset and closing liability are given. So can you find out the closing capital? Yes, you can easily find out. Closing capital is equal to closing asset minus closing liability. ठीक है, closing asset how much? 2 lakh. minus 6,000. ठीक है. So how much is the amount? It is 1,94,000. Now you have got the closing capital. Now from the closing capital you can find the opening capital. Opening capital क्या होगी? See, now closing capital is given. Now whatever you do to the opening capital, you add all the profits, you add all the income, you subtract all the expenses, you subtract all the losses, you subtract all the drawings, and you add the additional capital, है ना? Closing capital find करने के लिए. अब हम उल्टा करेंगे. Closing capital में we are going to do what opposite of what we do in opening capital. See, यहाँ पे additional capital है, so we are going to subtract the additional capital. We are going to subtract the additional capital. Drawings है, we are going to add the drawings here. We are going to add the drawings. ठीक है, and profit है, so we are going to subtract the profit. Understood? To find the opening. Up closing capital is 19,400 minus additional capital is 20,000. Withdrawal drawings को add करेंगे 12,000. And profit is 20,000. And profit is 20,000. ठीक है. So अभी हम add वालों को पहले add कर लेते हैं. 56,206 minus 40,000. Minus 40,000. तो कितना हो गया? It is 1,66,000 is your opening capital. So your opening capital is how much? It is 1,66,000. Okay. So here first you have to find out the closing capital from the closing asset and closing liability, and then from the closing capital you have to find out the opening capital. Very important question. Okay. The 24th question. Mohan started business on 1st April 22 with capital of 25,000. तो ये आपकी opening capital है. Opening capital is 25,000 and a loan of 12,500 borrowed from Shyam. Loan है, so this is a liability. Liability is 12,500. During the year he introduced additional capital. अब additional capital कितनी है? 12,500. And drawings, he also made a drawing of 7,500. So drawings is how much? 7,500. ठीक है? For personal use. On 31st March 23's assets were 75,000. तो आपके closing assets दिए हैं. Closing assets कितने हैं 31st March को? 75,000. अब आपको उसकी capital find out करनी है as on 31st March and the profit made or loss incurred during the year. So let us find out the closing capital. Closing capital. Now asset is equal to liability plus capital. तो capital क्या होगी? Capital will be asset minus liability. Now your closing asset is given. We have to find the closing capital only now. So closing capital क्या होगी? Closing asset, that is 75,000 minus your liability. Liability is 12,500. है ना? Because nothing is mentioned, that means it is still there till the end, that it has been paid or not. ठीक है? So how much is the closing capital now? The closing capital will be 62,500. 62,500 is the closing capital. Why? Because we have used this closing asset and your liability through this equation. Now, तो आपको capital तो पता चल गई closing. Now, what is the profit or loss? How do you find out? So, what is it? The opening capital, may what do you do? Your closing capital is always equal to, closing capital is equal to opening capital. Opening capital में आप क्या ऐड करते हो? Additional capital ऐड करते हैं? Yeah, additional capital. Then drawings का what do you do? You subtract, है ना? And what about the profits? You add the profits. You add the profits or you subtract the loss. But that we don't know. So profit slash loss, let us take it as X. So that is why I have written plus minus. Let us see. ठीक है, तो what is the closing capital? We already know 72500. Opening capital is 25,000. Additional capital is 12,500 and your drawings is 7,500 plus minus X. ठीक है, तो यहाँ पे हो गया 72500 is equal to how much? इन दोनों को ऐड करेंगे 37500 minus 7500 plus minus x, which is the profit or loss. So 62500 is equal to 30,000 प्लस माइनस x. तो अब ये 30,000 इधर ले गए, 62500 minus 30,000 is equal to plus minus x. How much? 30,000. It's a positive number. So that means x is the profit. X is profit. Profit of how much? Sorry, it will be, sorry, this is not 30,000, it is 32,500. 32,500 is the profit. How did you say it is a profit? Because it is positive. Okay, so it is a profit. This is a very, very important question. Please practice it. Please practice. Okay, this question. The 25th question. Calculate the amount of external equities. What is external equities? External equities means your liabilities. Liabilities are also called external equities. Internal equity means capital. Internal equity means capital. So be careful. क्या दिया है, पूछा है. As on 31st March, so closing liabilities. यहाँ पे as on 31st part. As on 31st March, total assets and capital were 15 lakh and 10 lakh 50,000 respectively. So very easily you can calculate the closing liability. What will be the external equity or the liability? It will be, okay, I'll write external equity only because it's written in the question. External equity will be equal to, हमारा equation क्या होता है हमेशा? Asset is equal to liability plus capital. Now here liability you have to find out. So it is asset minus capital. So how much is asset? Asset minus capital. How much is asset? Asset is your 15 lakh minus 10 lakh 50,000. 10 lakh 50,000. तो कितना हो गया? How much? It will be 4 lakh 50,000 is your external equity in the first case. Okay, now the second one. On 1st April, Mukesh started business with a capital of 3 lakh and a loan of 3 lakh borrowed from a friend. So this ये 1st April है. So your opening capital is given. Opening capital is 3 lakh and your liability, because loan है तो it's a liability, is 3 lakh. During the year he earned a profit of 1,50,000. तो profit कितना है during the year? It is 1,50,000. As on 31st March the total assets were 15 lakh. तो closing assets आपके कितने हैं? It is, what is the assets value on the last day of the financial year? It is 15 lakh. तो आपको क्या निकालना है? External liability. External liability. Okay. So what will be the external liability in this case? Now, your closing assets are given. So what will be your closing capital? Can you find out the closing capital? Closing capital will be opening capital plus the profit. यहाँ पे तो profit ही दिया हुआ है. तो it will be 3 lakh plus 1,50,000, which is equal to 4,50,000. 4,50,000. Now closing capital, you know the closing asset. So can you find out the external liability on 31st March? External equity on 31st of March, third last day. दोनों क्या होगा? It will be asset minus closing asset, मतलब closing asset minus closing capital. तो closing asset की value क्या है? It is 15 lakh minus 4,50,000. So how much is the amount? The amount is 10 lakh 50,000. What is the amount? It is 10 lakh 50,000. So external equity on 31st March last day is 10 lakh 50,000. So this is the way you will do the second part. Okay. Now the third part. What is the third part? Third में वो क्या बोल रहे हैं? Let us see. On 1st April 2022, Ramesh started business with a capital of 3 lakh and a loan of 3 lakh borrowed from a friend. तो आपकी ओपनिंग कैपिटल है यहाँ पे रमेश की 3 लाख, लोन है तो लाइबिलिटी इज 3 लाख। ओके, ये हो गया, ये हो गया। ड्यूरिंग द ईयर ही अर्नड अ प्रॉफिट ऑफ 1,50,000, तो योर प्रॉफिट इज 1,50,000, ठीक है। And what else? He introduced an additional capital of 1,80,000 and withdrew 90,000 for his personal use. तो additional capital भी है और drawings भी है. So let us write it down. तो additional capital is how much? 1,80,000 है ना? And your drawings is how much? Drawings है आपके 90,000. How much? 90,000. His on 31st March 23, his total assets were 15 lakh. So closing assets, how much are the closing assets? Closing assets भी दिए हुए हैं. They are 15 lakh. How much? 15 lakh. Now you have to calculate the what? External equity on 31st March. है ना, क्लोजिंग वाली. तो अभी हम पहले क्या कैलकुलेट करेंगे? फर्स्ट वी आर गोइंग टू कैलकुलेट द क्लोजिंग कैपिटल. लेट्स कैलकुलेट द क्लोजिंग कैपिटल. सो दिस विल बी ओपनिंग कैपिटल प्लस एडिशनल कैपिटल प्लस प्रॉफिट्स माइनस ड्रॉइंग्स. तो यहां पर ओपनिंग कैपिटल दी है 3 लाख, एडिशनल कैपिटल इज 1,80,000, profits is 1,50,000 and drawings is 90,000. तो हमारा कितना आ गया? अभी इसको करेंगे तो this will be your, let's add it, 13, 4, 5, 6, 6,30,000 minus 90,000 तो कितना हो गया? 5,40,000. 5,40,000 is your closing capital. अब closing capital पता है, you know the closing asset and you know the closing capital. So can you find out the external equity on 31st March? Very easy. So it will be your closing asset minus closing capital. ये कहाँ से आ रहा है हमारा? ये इक्वेशन से. asset is equal to liability plus capital. So liability will be asset minus capital. इधर से आ रहा है, इस इक्वेशन से. ठीक है. So now let's find out the closing asset, the closing equity. ठीक है, let's do it. तो अभी यहाँ पे आ जाएगा क्लोजिंग असेट है आपका 15 लाख माइनस 5,40,000. So how much is it? This is your 6 and 9. 9,60,000 is the external equity on 31st March 2020, whatever is the year given. So this is your external equity at the end of the year. Understood? Now 26th question, last one. Pranav started business on 1st April 2022 with a capital of 5,50,000. On 31st March 23, his total assets were 10,75,000. So this is the opening capital because 1st April 2022 hai. This is the closing assets. And on 31st March 23, his liabilities were 2,92,500. Calculate the amount by which his capital has increased as on 31st March. तो आपको टोटल, आपको क्या दिया गया है? आपको क्लोजिंग असेट्स दिए गए हैं which is 10,75,000 and your closing liability is given. Closing liability कितनी है? 2,92,500. ठीक है. तो आपकी क्लोजिंग क्या कैपिटल क्या होगी? क्लोजिंग कैपिटल विल बी क्लोजिंग असेट माइनस क्लोजिंग लाइबिलिटी. ये होगी ना, बिकॉज असेट इज इक्वल टू लाइबिलिटी प्लस कैपिटल. व्हाट इज द इक्वेशन? L प्लस C. तो C क्या होगा? A माइनस L. तो क्लोजिंग असेट आपको पता है 10,75,000 and 2 lakh, how much? 2,92,500 is the closing liability which you will subtract. तो कितना हो गया? How much is the amount? 500, then 2 This will be 8 and 7. So 7 lakh 82,500 is the closing capital. अब क्या पूछा है question is calculate the amount by which his capital has increased on 31st March. So what was his opening capital? His opening capital was 5 lakh 50,000. 5 lakh 50,000. And what is his closing capital? It is 7 lakh 82,500. So how much is the increase? How much is the increase? 782500 को में से 550000 सब्ट्रैक्ट कर देंगे. दैट विल बी द डिफरेंस, है ना? तो दिस विल बी 32. So this is the difference. This is the increase in capital. So by how much amount the capital has increased? This much is the increase in capital as on 31st March. As on 31st March. It's so easy.